Hello, hello. I'm Danita Jones. My family calls me Civic Minded Jones, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Lamia, and she is a psychologist. Her career long passion for encouraging emotional awareness in adults, adolescents, and preteens is exemplified by her 6 books. Her most recent publications include Grief Isn't Something to Get Over, Finding a Home for Memories and Emotions After Losing a Loved One, and The Upside of Shame, Therapeutic Interventions Using the Positive Aspects of a Negative Emotion. Her blog posts for Psychology Today illustrate her endeavor to convey an understanding of emotion and its significant role in who we become. With that same goal in mind, she is also a professor in the doctoral program of the Wright Institute in Berkeley and has a private practice in Kentfield, California. Let's welcome Dr. Lamia.
Hi, Danita. Thank you for
Hey.
having me.
Thank you for being here. So, first of all, tell me, why is this work important to you?
Over the 50 years that I've done this work, it's transformed somewhat, but I've always wanted to help people learn more about their emotions and who they are, and have them be guided by that so that they can have more fulfilling lives.
That's great. That's awesome. And so, today I brought you here to discuss, for my program, From Discord to Harmony, Charting America's Path Forward, Charting this America's Path to Unity. And when I think about that, I always think about people's belief systems. So, what are the key psychological factors that shape a person's beliefs?
Um, it's so interesting how we blame people for having beliefs they have, or criticize them, or put them down in some ways. But actually, our beliefs come from the emotions that have been activated throughout our lives and create memories that exist in our brain. And we have this whole file cabinet of memories in our brain that tell us what to do in the present and what we need to do in the future, because memories and emotions protect us. They're there for our protection. They're not there just, to get rid of. They're there because they tell us what to do. They activate an emotion could activate a memory in our brain, and it informs us what our next move should be.
Yeah.
So, it's our whole file cabinet of emotions that have been triggered throughout our lives, and the memories that are created that really determine our behavior.
Yeah, and that's so really deep and complex, I feel too, because we all have such various, backgrounds and different experiences, growing up and throughout life and all of that, which forms your memories because you experienced them, and then how you proceed or operate or interact with other people, it's really interesting. So how
Well,
do
these days, you know how people talk about being triggered by something.
Mhm.
Well, what are they talking about? They're talking about an emotion is activated in them based on a previous experience. Now, that doesn't mean you need to avoid that person because they trigger some emotion in you. It means you need to take a look at what is happening and why,
Right.
versus, it's a bad thing to have that trigger. It's not a bad thing. It just happens to be because of your past experiences.
Yeah. And really recognizing that, oh, I'm triggered right now. And then, yes, examine like, why am I triggered? What is
Yes.
causing me to react this way? So, how do emotions and memories influence the ideologies we adopt?
Well, throughout our lives, just imagine all the emotions we have and all the memories we construct from those emotional experiences. And if we put them all together, they determine, what we believe. So we can't fault anybody for what they believe. It just happens to be their compilation of emotional experiences. And yet, if we look at all of our emotional experiences, maybe we could understand why we believe what we do,
Hmm.
and how to, I mean, we can justify, what we believe. It doesn't make it right or wrong. It just makes it what it is because of our emotional experience. It doesn't mean that a particular political belief is right or wrong. It's that we may adhere to it because it fits our lineup of emotional memories.
Yeah, no, that's a great point right there. So why do some people remain apathetic toward political and social issues, even when those issues directly affect them?
What is apathy? You know, apathy is fascinating because one of our most dominant emotions, we think about what's the most prominent emotion we can feel. Well, I mean, what's most useful to our lives? Well, it happens to be a fairly neutral one, interest.
Hmm.
Interest is an emotion where, I mean, we couldn't survive without interest. Interest, curiosity, um, makes us pursue something, pursue a goal. Put
Hmm.
a little baby down on the floor and put a shiny thing across the room, and the baby is likely to, crawl across the room to find it because they're interested. And interest helps us grow. So as a motivating mechanism, see, the purpose of emotion is to motivate us. They're motivating mechanisms. They make us do something. They tell us what to do. So interest in some ways informs us to to be curious, to pursue. Now, if you are apathetic, you're not interested.
Hmm.
So why are people not interested in politics or whatever, what political stuff is out there? It's because they don't have an interest in it. Maybe their warehouse of memories doesn't have a lot of contents that have to do with that being important to them,
Hmm.
or they're not motivated for some reason to pursue that knowledge.
And then maybe sometimes too, because I was speaking with some other experts about this as well, like overwhelmed and then you shut down. Could those also
Well,
be
yes, your emotions
possibilities?
can be somewhere else. Your emotions can be focused on something more pressing in your life, or well, if you're shut down, that would be sort of depressed, sort
Hmm.
of in some ways like it feels like an absence of emotion. It feels like a suppression of emotion.
Hmm.
And so you withdraw when you're down like that or depressed.
Yeah.
And so you don't care. Emotions make us care. They motivate us, they make us care. The opposite of love is not hate, for example. It's indifference.
Mm.
You know, if you break up with somebody and you are still mad at them, you're not indifferent. You still care,
Mm.
whether it's positive or negative. An emotion can be positive or it could be negative, but it still is caring.
So caring. Yeah. So what role does fear play in reinforcing our or challenging our beliefs?
Think about fear as a highly motivating emotion because it is necessary for our survival, or at least it was. And
Hmm.
I mean, it still is, but it certainly was in caveman days
Hmm.
and cave woman days. I mean, if a panther is at the mouth of the cave and you don't have fear, you've got a problem. So fear protects us. Um, so fear can motivate us to change a belief if we think that changing a belief will keep us safe.
Yeah.
And so it's all based on survival.
Hmm.
And if we think our survival is at stake, let's say because a certain political party is in office, we have a lot of fear and we're hypervigilant. Fear makes us look around and be careful.
Yeah.
So it's all a matter of survival. And
Right.
those again, that's again based on our emotional memories.
Right. It's the whole um, flight or fight type of thing too, right?
Yes, in a way it is.
Hmm.
But I mean, there's other responses to fear, including tend and befriend.
Hmm.
So it's not all fight or flight.
Hmm.
Um, there's a lot of ways to handle fear, especially we need to look at it and see where does this fear come from? Does this come from my upbringing? What did my parents say? What do I remember? What scared me?
And again, that
Um,
ties right back into the memories thing, what you've been
right
talking
into
about.
the
It's like every,
memories.
it seems like all roads lead to your memories and
Yes, they do.
how you react to things. So, how do people in power use emotions such as fear, anger, or hope to maintain their influence over the public?
Oh, unfortunately, emotions are used all the time to influence the public. Any advertisement you see on television has some emotional element that's bound to influence you if you let it. Uh,
Mhm.
Many people like to sit around and kind of figure out an ad to see what it's trying to do to you, and
Hmm.
that may be fun. But if you're just passive and you just listen and you let it in and let it influence you, it can evoke all kinds of emotions, sadness, happiness, whatever, joy, fear, for sure, anger. So, yes, emotions get used by politicians, by advertising. All kinds of people use emotions to influence people.
And it's really now I feel, but I mean, it's been out this way forever as far as needing to be mindful about the biases or even, in advertising or the news and so forth, because it's like everything is to create a response,
Oh,
from
the
you,
news,
you know?
you got it there. Um, and if you listen to the vocal tones and rhythms of news broadcasters, that alone evokes emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And a good news broadcaster knows how to do that. They
Mm-hmm.
can use their vocal tones and rhythms to calm you down and comfort you or to stir you up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I sometimes have to tell patients they need to go on a bit of a news diet because it actually influences them. There are people who get depressed from listening to too much news.
I know I've cut back
Designed.
on watching the news a lot lately because it was just triggering my emotions everywhere. I was just bouncing all over the place.
Yes, and
So,
watching commentary on the news, I mean, how
mhm,
much can you watch? But if you evoke fear in people, then the news becomes addicting. They'll want more because they want reassurance or they want to know what to do to protect themselves or how they should think. And so it's addicting in that way, in that, we are creatures who are self-protective. And so we'll get pulled in by the news.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, is greed an innate human trait or is it something shaped by societal and cultural factors? Sometimes,
Greed.
and yeah, because I first talked a little about power, but I want to talk about a little bit about greed as well.
And can you give me an example of how you're
Well, as far
defining?
as um, as far as in like in politics, and this is throughout, you know, our country is about to be 250 years old, but we have seen throughout time, 1700, 1800s, that a lot of political plays have a lot of, greed for the most part, always trying to, it seems at least, to benefit themselves politically versus, um, looking out for the people. So just exploring that topic a little.
So you're talking even about selfishness, right?
Yes, yes.
In a way.
Yeah.
Um, well, if there's 100 people in the tribe and there's only so many berries to go around, there are going to be people who want them all, and there are going to be others who pick the berries and give them away and make sure they're distributed. Uh, so people are different in terms of whether they're empathic and caring and giving, or if they keep it all for themselves, or they want it all themselves.
Mhm.
Um, in a way, you're talking about narcissism, aren't you?
Yeah, actually,
Self-centeredness.
when you break it down fully, yeah, I think it really um boils down to that actually.
And if you think about narcissism, where does narcissism come from? It comes from the avoidance of shame, or maybe avoidance of doing without, in your example.
Mhm.
Um, so greed would be a way to protect oneself if you have a lifetime of memories. If a person has a lifetime of memories where they don't have enough, or they think that getting it all even if it hurts other people, will help them. Again, that lifetime of memories really can affect people.
Yeah, yeah. And just even speaking on that, and I know when I first started, I think when I first wrote you, I was mentioning how like when I was 11, the saying, you never know about someone. I mean, I'm really paraphrasing it right now because I don't have it in front of me, unless you walk a mile in their shoes and their moccasins. And so I have pretty much always lived my life that way. And then because you just never know what someone has gone through or experienced to make them the person that they are
Oh,
today,
you're so right. You're
you
so
know?
right. We don't know what's in somebody else's head or in their heart or in their memory file,
Mhm.
and yet we assume we do. Again, that's another human trait, making assumptions about what other people think or feel or
Mhm.
how they're going to behave. And then we behave accordingly. It's all for self-preservation. But are we right? More often than not, we're not right
Mhm.
because we haven't walked a mile in their shoes. We don't know. We can't read somebody else's mind.
Mhm.
Sure, make a lot of inferences though.
Mhm.
And it's I don't think it's a happy way to live. It's
Mhm.
it's more interesting to find out what somebody else's life was like and why they believe what they do instead of categorizing them in some way.
Right. Yeah. So, how can individuals break free from deeply ingrained beliefs that may not serve them or a society well?
We really have to look at ourselves, Danita, because, how often do we sit back and think about why we believe what we do? We
Mhm.
don't. We just believe it as
Yeah.
though it's ingrained and that's ours and we should go on living our lives that way. And
Mhm.
yet you could have one experience that affects you profoundly, that alters your beliefs,
Mhm.
alters them in a very deep way, that challenges them in a way where you'll listen to yourself and what you feel. But more often than not, we just go on believing what we do.
Mhm. Yeah, we just
Easier.
yeah, just stay in that lane or with the blinders on and not thinking, beyond that scope. But what strategies can be used to engage apathetic individuals in civic and political life?
Well, okay, so now we have that apathetic individual who doesn't care,
Mhm.
who has no emotion around a particular issue,
Mhm.
and we want them to be engaged in civic life. Um, how do we make somebody care? Well, the only way to do it is to evoke some emotion, is to reach them where they feel.
Mhm.
And can we reach people where they feel? Um, yeah, we can. If you can activate some emotion in somebody, then they'll be interested. Interest will pop up. But how do you do that? How do you engage them? Well, you know, I would think one would have to get close to home for them.
Mhm.
What counts for them? And you would have to find out what counts for them and give them a way to become engaged in something that has meaning. If something doesn't have meaning to us, we're not going to be engaged. Our
Mhm.
emotions aren't going to be activated.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's just a personal experience somebody has had, or their empathy for whoever is talking to them. Hard to say, but you have to evoke an emotion. Without emotion, there's no motivation. Emotions are there to motivate us, and
And
without
so,
them, we don't care.
yeah. And so when you say meet them where they feel, is that just another way of saying meet them where they are? Because I keep hearing that term, especially these last couple of years, especially meet people where they are. Is that the same thing or is that a little different?
I think that's different.
Okay. Hmm.
I appreciate you making that differentiation too, because where they are is, where they've come to. But where they feel is a little bit different. Where they feel created where they are. And so, how do you do that? Well, you would have to get to know them well enough to activate the emotion or what they feel. You'd have to know a little bit about somebody's life in order to activate those feelings.
Yeah, yeah. So that's
But
really,
just like when
let,
you said
mhm,
earlier, when you were introducing the program,
mhm.
something about your family calls you civic
Civic-minded Jones.
minded, Danita.
Hmm.
And I would say, what are they thinking? This woman
Hmm.
is brilliant. Why don't they just call her brilliant? I mean, you've done so much and you know so much, um, but it's a compliment either way.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And yes, they say many other very kind things as well. So,
But how would you make everybody as civic minded as you? I mean,
well,
you'd have to engage them emotionally.
right, absolutely, absolutely. You have to get to the core, and get to know them, and see what they care about. And because as I was speaking to someone earlier today, many people are actually civic minded or act, very in a civic way without even knowing it. Maybe not really from using that term or familiar with that term in that sense, but people are involved in their communities. People are involved in their town, their city, in their family, and so forth, and or in their school, and so those are civic, minded gestures right there. So.
I'll give you a good example that happened to me where I became more involved with my community. I didn't particularly care all the almost 40 years I've lived in my house about whether or not the electrical wires were undergrounded. I mean, this is not something I care to pursue or do, or because it's just too much.
Mhm.
And then there was a windstorm near my home, and I looked out the front window. My power went out, and my electrical wires were on fire. There were,
Oh, wow.
tree branches over the
Yeah.
wires on fire.
Wow.
That could have just destroyed the entire community.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that evoked fear, big
Yes.
fear.
Right.
And suddenly I'm head of the undergrounding committee.
And so you were
So,
where under here?
and suddenly, so I started this undergrounding committee for a whole
Okay.
community,
Hmm.
and it's gotten off, but it's a lot of work. Not something I want to do,
Hmm.
but the fear motivated me. And
Hmm.
I think the fear motivated fires in California, where I am, motivated everybody in my community to do something.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And then as a result, at least, down here of the fires that we had in Southern California,
Oh,
you saw such an outreach of community, people really driving far and wide to help, to help all these people who were in need.
and
So,
that's one place where you could watch a news program, and see something like the fires in LA,
mhm.
and your heart aches for those people. And
Yeah,
that motivates you.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Um, so I want to move on to talk about how can we encourage people to think critically about the narratives they consume and believe.
Oh, think critically about it. How can we help people just explore the narrative they believe?
Hmm.
Because we run across so many people who don't believe what we do. And rather than argue with them, what's the first thing we can do? I mean, we got to go back to interest, that emotion of interest. Be interested in what other people think if they don't believe what you believe.
Hmm.
So ask questions about it. Ask questions about who they are and what they believe and how they came to believe what they do. Ask ourselves questions about how we came to believe what we do. And if you're talking to somebody who has a belief system very different than your own, you can talk about how you came to believe the way you believe and ask them. So sometimes we assume we know all the answers just because we believe something. We only know our answers. We don't know
Right.
anybody else's.
Yeah. And two, it's like I always go back to the saying like you don't know what you don't know. And I know that there's so many things I don't know that I don't know.
But you're
So,
not arrogant, so that's different. So
yeah.
what if somebody's arrogant and they think they know it all? That's hard to break through.
Mm-hmm.
It is really hard to break through. But sometimes if somebody doesn't think you're going to attack them for what they believe, they can become less arrogant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It helps them let down their guard a little bit. So I would say most important is to be curious.
Mm-hmm.
Be curious. You know what? You can have a lot of fun figuring out why somebody believes what they do or what they believe, or just asking somebody else questions.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there are so many situations where people don't want to be around people who think differently than they do, rather than see that as an opportunity to learn something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being curious is so true, and that has been pretty much a reoccurring theme in this program that I've been speaking to various experts. Like, be curious, and also another theme is values. What do you value? Um, and so I want to move on to ask you, is unity possible in a society where emotions, memories, and ideologies create deep divisions? And if so, how?
Uh, Unity is possible. It's not probable, but it's possible. Uh, if if people were not afraid of listening to what somebody else believes.
Mhm,
Uh, Again, we tend to be around like-minded people
mhm,
rather than around people who believe differently than we do.
mhm,
So if we're willing to put away our fear and anxiety for a moment, and we don't have to give up what we believe in order to explore what somebody else thinks and why they do. And so to let down our guard a little bit, uh, everybody could hang on to what they believe and still share it. It's not as though you're going to take it away. But another factor that I think really influences people is connecting with each other, on a different level.
mhm,
Say you have very different political beliefs and you connect with somebody on music
mhm,
or, some other theme. Uh, when we empathize with another person or identify with another person, we're more likely to let down our guard on the things that we hold, tightly. And so um, there's a person, I think he's from LA, Daryl Davis, who
mhm,
talked with Ku Klux Klan members. And Daryl was a musician,
mhm,
and a Ku Klux Klan member happened to go into the club he was playing in and became enamored with his music. They got to know each other.
mhm,
Ultimately, the Ku Klux Klanman gave up his membership,
mhm,
and so did others as they got to know this guy,
mhm.
because you just can't help but love him. And they connected at that deep emotional level,
Yeah.
and it made a difference. When you connect with another human being, ideas are not as important anymore.
Hmm. Yeah, no, very true. Very true. Um, and I think we've covered a little bit of this already. Um, because is it, I was going to ask, but I think we've covered it though. But we can maybe want to touch on it a little bit more. What psychological barriers prevent people from having open conversations with those who hold opposing beliefs?
It's such a threat when somebody holds an opposing beliefs, but it really depends on how self-centered we are too. The more self-centered we are, the more we adhere to our beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, I've actually seen cases of parents and children who don't get along just because they have different political beliefs.
Hmm.
And that's painful to see.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh, why can't human beings who are biologically connected get along just because they have different political beliefs?
Yeah.
As though our political beliefs don't create who we are. Who we are created the political beliefs we have.
Mm-hmm.
And so just because our parents don't believe the same things we do doesn't mean that we're not connected in some way. And people seem to let go of everything else that connects them to one another
Mm-hmm.
when they grab onto an ideology and can't let it go.
Right. And I think, for some people, in those, because I know quite a few that their families have been torn apart, because of politics. But if they feel that they're such a lack of humanity, that their humanity or their livelihood rather is being threatened. And so it's like, well, how can you, believe this person or follow, support this particular individual? And when what that individual is doing is affecting how I will be living my life. And
Well, why would a vegan want to hang around somebody who eats meat? I mean, can you, if you're a vegan, hang around with somebody who, yeah, you can, but if it just repulses you, see, that's another emotion that fear is big, disgust is bigger.
mm-hmm,
And if somebody or an idea disgusts you, disgust repels us.
mm-hmm,
It makes us want to get away. And ideas can be disgusting to us.
mm-hmm,
So if eating meat is disgusting to me, then I'm repelled. And why would I hang out with somebody who ate meat, even though it doesn't define them?
mm-hmm,
So how can we get past a disgust response? Well, I mean, empathy helps us get past a disgust response. Learning something else about the person helps us do that. Or uh, trying to put it in perspective in some way. I see a lot of couples in my practice, and I just love around election times
mm-hmm,
how people who have different beliefs than their partner
mm-hmm,
get into such horrific disagreements. I mean, this is your partner, and you're hating your partner because of their political affiliation.
mm-hmm,
And I try to say it's sort of like if one person liked oysters and the other person hated oysters, would you, I mean, would that be okay? It's just
mm-hmm,
oysters. They grew up not liking oysters.
mm-hmm,
So, I mean, we have this lifetime of memories and we can't fault each other for that.
mm-hmm. And so, and I'm wondering because you've given a couple of food references regarding it. So, but I could hear other probably people that are watching would say, well, that's food. But what about, if I'm gay or if I'm black or if I'm, brown and the administration seems to be doing like all of these attacks that's going to affect me for those things. Because I can't change the fact if I'm gay or if I'm, Latin or if I'm black or what
Right.
have you. So, um,
See that, but that evokes, I mean, there's food, but then there's the emotion. There's fear, there's disgust, um, there's sadness, there's shame. Shame is huge too in all of that. It's shaming. Discrimination is shaming. It's
mhm.
horrible. Uh, so I've forgotten your question now. Okay,
I was like, if,
so what if?
right. So how do you come to have, unity or be able to just have a civil conversation? Because we were talking about families and I'm again giving examples of people that I know that have just because of these particular issues in particular that they are having a hard time communicating with, you know, family members that they feel like, you support such and such person, but that person is affecting my livelihood, of how I operate, in this country.
Right. And so there's that fact, and yet this other person who believes what they do is still a person who has this file of emotional memories that made them believe what they do. You approach it head on
Hmm.
with curiosity and interest, with some motivation to find out why they believe what they do,
Hmm. Hmm.
rather than put down their interest instead go for what created the interest.
Right. Yeah. What created it? What has your experience been that created this? You know?
That would allow you to support this person who does X.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's so hard when our own emotions become activated
Mm-hmm.
to sort of accept them, sit back, and then pursue it with interest.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, we're prone to express our anger or our disgust or something rather than be interested in why this person believes what they do.
Yeah. And that actually leads us right into perfectly into this next question is how can we approach conversations with those who differ from us without triggering defensiveness or conflict?
So I think we always have to approach a conversation with someone who believes differently with the idea in mind that we're not there to change them, we're there to find out. We're
Mm-hmm.
there with curiosity to find out more about what they believe
Mm-hmm.
rather than to change anything.
Mm-hmm.
Because if your motivation is just to change, then you'll take a different tactic than you will with the empathy of finding out who somebody is and why they believe what they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that's number one. I think you're not there to change them, you're there to find out.
Mm. That's
You're
that's
curious.
that's that's a great point. You're there to find out. And so what are some effective ways to stay grounded emotionally when discussing deeply held beliefs, with someone who disagrees?
Well, I think you have to take a lot of deep breaths and get a grip on your own emotions
Hmm.
and say, well, right now I'm getting really uh, angry about what this person believes or what I know they believe. That's not going to help you. Uh,
Hmm.
and remember that your anger is self-protective. So you want to protect yourself, but you have nothing to protect yourself from. It's just another person discussing their beliefs. So, I mean, we put up our guard. Emotions are there to protect us. So they're to inform us that we need to do that, but we need to check them and say, okay, I don't need to protect myself right now. I don't need to be angry and put up a shield.
Hmm.
What I do need is to be curious. So
Yeah.
you maintain your curiosity, you maintain your interest.
And it's really interesting doing this series because I've been interviewing so many people from various walks of life, right? And sometimes there will be someone, or a few someones that says something, and then I'll be like, okay, I'm just here to ask questions. I'm here to just, get information. But it's been a way for me to exercise that myself,
Yes.
exercise it for myself. I'm like, okay, why was I triggered by that? Why, and so as I'm interviewing, I'm like even talking to myself, okay, well, why am I feeling this way? And it helps me to reset and like, okay, well, let's hear this person out. Let's ask even more questions. And so this has been a great learning experience for me, as well
And you
doing
can use
this.
your emotions probably to inform the kinds of questions you ask.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, you're a
So,
good example of what I'm talking about. You aren't there to express your opinions. They're there to find out what their opinions are and why.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
you've learned that you've learned a way to kind of put it all in check and keep asking.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And so, how do our past experiences and emotional memories influence how we communicate with others, especially those we perceive as the other?
Well, first of all, remember, since our memories are there to protect us, we automatically put up our guard,
Mhm.
and that's not a good influence. Uh, how do they influence the way we react to others?
Mhm.
Well, in every single way. I mean, all of our emotional memories account for how we react to certain facial expressions
Mhm.
and demeanor. the sound of somebody's voice activates emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so somebody's beliefs are part of that, but everything about another person is going to just rapidly, our mind is going to go through all those unconscious memories and tell us what we should think about them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And most often it's wrong.
Right. So, can empathy be taught or strengthened in polarized environments? And if so, how?
Same way, we can't have empathy without walking in somebody else's shoes,
Mhm.
or at least putting ourselves in somebody else's shoes in our mind. Uh, empathy is complicated because it does involve a lot of emotions, but especially interest. Um, but there are different kinds of empathy. There are people who look like they're very empathic and that they understand what you're thinking and you're feeling, but they don't really have empathy. They have theory of mind. It's cognitive empathy in a sense. It
Mhm.
comes from their head. It's like they infer what you're thinking
Mhm.
because they can't feel what you're thinking.
Mhm.
And can you tell the difference in actual life if somebody has true empathy and they can feel you
Mhm.
versus think you? A
Mhm.
lot of times not. That's how
Mhm.
sociopaths get away with it. They're
Mhm.
brilliant at theory of mind. They know what somebody else is thinking and how they're going to react. They have it all figured out. And it looks like they're empathizing with you when in fact they're thinking their way into how they're going to use you.
Mhm. Mhm. It's
All
wow.
these, all the scammers
Yeah.
who call you,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Often they create fear. Somebody's taken over your computer or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is.
Mm-hmm. Because you can, so, fear definitely manipulates. People can use fear to fully manipulate. Um, so
Yeah,
for,
I don't like that when people use emotions to manipulate, but they
mm-hmm.
do. I
Right.
mean, probably we all do,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah, to a certain degree, but
some people use it and harm others with it.
right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so this has been so great. Any final thoughts?
I don't think so. I think you've asked it all, but I'm glad you're doing what you're doing because you're the perfect person to do it.
Oh, thank you so much.
To
Thank you.
ask all those questions, I'm so excited about listening to your programs and learning something myself.
Yeah, no, it's been very enlightening. Just from the broad scope of everything, from history to understanding more about how the government works and having these conversations about how humans work. I mean, we're so complex. It's just we're just complex beings, and with such a myriad of experiences that have led into who we are.
But what you've done is, I think, you're putting together knowledge with the emotion,
Yeah.
the emotional stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
that's really important. It's just having the emotion, like being attracted to a certain political party, let's say. It's
Mm-hmm.
not enough. How about knowledge?
Mm-hmm.
How about knowledge about how the government works, what you
Mm-hmm.
need to know? And that's,
Right.
I think, what you're bringing us. That's why I'm
Mm-hmm.
very excited to see what you've done.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you. And before you go, how can people, support your work, find your books, or anything that you're doing?
My website is the best source of information. It's marylamia.com.
Great. Well, wonderful. I'm gonna put that link at the bottom of this video so people have easy access to get to
Thank
it.
you.
Great. Well, again, thank you so much. I really appreciate you and for
I'm
you taking the
wonderful to
time
meet
for
you.
this.